All righty, and welcome back to another episode of the Discover Virginia Beach podcast. Today we have a super special guest and one of my awesome Facebook friends, Steven. How's it going, Steven?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, man. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on because, you just have a really cool perspective on Virginia Beach that I have not really ever been exposed to, more so from an appreciation side. So real quick, I'd love to introduce you to our audience. So Stephen Brett Stone is one of the admin originators of the Virginia Beach Inshore Fishing. And it would be an understatement to say that fishing is not a huge part of the Virginia Beach community. Stephen, introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what you got going on, and tell us a little bit about your Facebook group.
Sure. So I go by Brett. You can call me Brett. That's my middle name. That's kind of just my common. Stephen's my formal name, I guess. But I've lived in the Hampton Roads area for about 10 years. And when I moved here, I went to school out here. But what really kept me here was fishing. I grew up in Southwest Virginia bass fishing. And when I got here and I just went saltwater fishing with my dad, actually, and I was like, hey, man, I live at the beach. Like I can do this anytime I want. And it just really took over. And it's really a big reason of why we've stayed in the area. So it's something I'm super passionate about. It boils into my professional work life as well as it's a stress reliever for me for sure.
Absolutely. And transitioning to the Brett slogan here, Brett, what is it that you do for work? And does that involve fishing at all? Or is it like two separate lives that you live?
So, yeah, to some extent. So I work for the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources, which is similar to DNR. A lot of states have. It's our natural, Virginia's natural resources. So I don't get to fish at work per se, but I'm around wildlife and Virginia's fisheries. So it's something that I'm always outdoors and I'm very passionate about.
Wonderful. Well, Brett, thank you for your time today. We're going to be diving into some really cool pieces of content. So, if you're hearing this live or you know somebody that likes to fish or enjoys the fishing conversation, Brett has a whole Facebook group, basically a giant digital trophy room of all of the amazing fish that they catch here in the Virginia Beach area. It's just called Virginia Beach Inshore Fishing. So be sure to check that out in the show notes or go ahead and just type it into Facebook and join that group. It's super awesome and just really cool stories. So Brett, let's dive into it. It's definitely an understatement to say that fishing is not a big part of Virginia Beach, and it's a big part of the community, which is why I definitely wanted to have a conversation with you. Because as we've been growing my Facebook group and figuring out what people want to learn about, there are just so many cool pieces of Virginia Beach history, agriculture, and fishing is definitely one of them. So, Stephen, I'd love to kind of turn the conversation back over to you, sir. Would you mind chatting with us a little bit about what inspired you or what kind of led you into the direction of creating your fishing Facebook group? And then also, where do you get the inspiration for that content?
Yeah, so it kind of started with when I moved out here, I wasn't fishing. Fishing had kind of been put on hold. It's just something that I wasn't really doing at the time. And like I said, I had a trip where I went to visit my father, who recently moved to North Carolina, the coast of North Carolina. And I went fishing with him. And it was really my first time saltwater fishing. And like I briefly mentioned earlier, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, one, this is really fun. But two, I live at the beach as well. And I can do this pretty much whenever I want. So I came back. I bought a cheap combo from Walmart, and I just started to try to get into it. And again, all my previous history was bass fishing, right? So this is a totally new fishery. There are things that come into play that I had no idea about. And it was a little bit of a struggle and a grind, to be honest. And I also noticed, there's not a lot of people in the community, or there can be some people in the community that want to keep things super hush hush, which to an extent I understand, right? That people don't want to give out their secret spots, and I get that and respect that. But people have to learn somehow, right? And that was really the purpose of why I started Virginia Beach Inshore Fishing, or VBIF, was just a place where other locals, regardless of experience level, whether you're beginning or whether you've been fishing this area your entire life, kind of come together, meet up and hang out and go fish together, which is always awesome. A platform to meet meet new buddies, but also to kind of learn. Guys can post tips and tricks that work for them, or like you said, at sometimes it can just be, if anything else, an activity report, and kind of what the water temps are and what's biting during the time of year. So
yeah, absolutely. And there are a lot of hidden gems and really well-kept secrets that I definitely want to preserve the mystery of Virginia Beach. For those of you who have yet to visit, come and visit, come and hang out with myself, people like Brett or Brett himself, hit him up on Facebook and definitely, dive into it a little bit more in person. Although I will say we'll share one hidden gem for you folks who haven't been here, maybe towards the end of the conversation, that if Brett's comfortable, we could probably mention one.
Absolutely.
So Brett, I kind of want to kind of backtrack just a little bit here, because you have just this really cool story of somebody who, tried something incredibly new and different. And a lot of the people we've talked to on the podcast, there's been this trend of people who have either had major life events, whether that was like Darcy in our last episode, she actually had got let go from the school. So she kind of had to pivot her career as a teacher to an art influencer in a way. And then another episode was with Debbie, who had a major life event with the way she viewed music. So there's been this common theme of all these people we're talking to, and a lot of people that are in these communities that are maybe trying fishing for the first time, or maybe they're just trying to figure out what Virginia Beach has to offer. So, Brett, if you wouldn't mind diving a little bit deeper into your story, I'd love to hear about like what led you down this path of, not just bass fishing to, inshore saltwater fishing, but like what led you to Virginia Beach? Like, was there something about it? Was there people you met along the way? Would you share a little bit more about that for us?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in a town called Bassett, and it's really south central Virginia. It's about an hour south of Roanoke, if you're familiar with that. So not a lot to do there. It was known, Franklin County was known for moonshining back in the day. There's several movies about that. And furniture. I mean, that's really it. There's not a lot of jobs there. It's not a big city, or it's a pretty small town. So really the outdoors is about the only thing that it's got going for it, which is a great thing because it's beautiful there. You have the mountains, it's in the foothills of the Blue Ridge. And so hunting and fishing is what most folks are out there doing for hobbies, and boating, obviously. So for us, me growing up, the beach was maybe one time a year vacation, and it was a big deal. We would go to the beach for a week, and that was our vacation. Now, we didn't generally come to Virginia Beach. We generally went to Myrtle, but still, you go to the beach, and for us, that was super cool. Big city, lots of shops, stuff like that. So that's kind of what gravitated me here was I got accepted to ODU, which is a college out here. And I was like, yeah, I'll go live near the beach and go to school for 4 years and come back. And then, like I said, once I got here, I established a friend base. I met my now wife, and we've stayed in the area. I mean, I love the area. It's a great place to live. There's lots to do, and there's good folks here.
Absolutely. Well, Brett, I really appreciate you expanded upon that, because it is a really cool place and a really interesting place to just explore new things. I'm not a local of Virginia Beach, although many people think I do from the posts I have on my Facebook group, but I'm literally just trying to go out and explore and discover as much as I can. So yeah, I mean, not being a local is not a prerequisite to enjoying Virginia Beach.
For sure.
It does help for all the hidden gems and such, but yeah. So with that said, Brett, I'm going to love to transition the conversation over for all of our fishermen and women out there. Please give the people what they want when it comes to fishing. Would you mind sharing with us a story or past experience of maybe the first time you went fishing, whether that be bass or inshore fishing?
Sure. So I would say what got me into it to begin with, I was young. I don't even remember how old, but my dad used to take me camping. We would just go camping, and I would always meet up with some of the other, kids my age at the time. And we would go catfish from docks at night, or bluegill fish for that matter, with just, a little bobber and a small hook and some night crawlers, and just watch the bobber go under and you catch the small bluegill. And that was a blast. Same with staying up all night with a lantern. Bugs are everywhere, and we're just sitting out there waiting for a big catfish to swim by and grab our bait. So that's kind of what really I enjoyed doing. And that's really what got me into it. It was just something to where, like, for me, like nothing else really meant, like, all your stress goes away. You're just hanging out. You're in the moment. It's super beautiful wherever you're at. You can just enjoy being outside and hanging with friends. So I think that's really what got me hooked on fishing was yes, it was the fishing, but it was also the experience as well.
Absolutely. Well said, Brett. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because there's just something to be said about the outdoors that just gives another dimension and element to life that, I call myself a city slicker and a nerd and a tech person in some regards that I just don't get, within the four walls of, my super high speed internet. So it's really refreshing to be a part of that and definitely go out and explore. So, Brett, how can you describe like a few maybe typical fishing techniques or equipment that you would use for inshore fishing operations? Like what's your tool deck look like?
All right, so I'll give you two. How's that?
That sounds great.
And most folks probably know these. They're very general, but they work. So the first I would say is just a simple bottom rig, right? Like leader line straight down to a weight. And then you would just use the weight that you need. Obviously in saltwater, you tend to need a little more, just because of the tides, the current, wind, etc. Just enough to hold you on the bottom, and then just like a high-low rig. So weight on the bottom, hook up top. Some guys will put two hooks, about 6 inches apart with the weight on the bottom. And then just tip that with some sort of bait, whether it's shrimp. And when I say shrimp, you don't have to go get live shrimp. You can literally go to the grocery store and buy, frozen shrimp like we would eat, we would cook up, and just take that with you and just tip your hook with that shrimp, and you'll catch fish all day doing that. And it's simple, which is a good thing. I mean, if you just want to go out with your kids or your family, or you're just getting into it, that's a great way to see what's in your local waters, wherever you're at, because everything eats shrimp. We eat shrimp, fish eat shrimp. So everything loves shrimp. And if you're trying to expand past that and get into the artificial lures, which is primarily what I fish, I would say the best way to go about it would just to get what's called a jig head. Several companies make them. It's just a little lead head, and they come in different weight sizes. Generally, with our waters, I would say get anywhere from a 1/4 ounce to a 3/8 ounce if you're fishing inshore. Again, whatever's going to get you to the bottom, but generally those two weights will get you there. And then just tip that with a soft plastic that you like. Fishing can be overcomplicated. People can make it more complicated than it needs to be. You walk into a tackle shop, you're going to see 1,000 different lures, 1,000 different colors, and 1,000 different prices. And you're going to look around and go, oh my gosh. And for a lot of people, that's discouraging, which again is another reason why Virginia Beach Inshore Fishing is a great way to just get on there and see what other guys and girls are using. But literally anything, you can buy plastic shrimps, you can buy little paddle tails. I mean, you name it, they make it. And just tip that onto your lead head, cast it out, and just kind of bounce it along the bottom. And that will catch any of our inshore species. So those are two good ways of going about it. Whether you're wanting to do just the kind of the hangout method, which would be the shrimp method, and you're just kind of cast it out, let it set. Or if you want to constantly, if you're like me, I can't let things set. I've got to be moving, so that's why I prefer the artificials.
Absolutely. Brett, that is a great tip. I actually had to write that down. So if you are getting started, or if you missed that part, hit the rewind button, or, go check out the shrimp or the jig head lures, correct?
Correct. Yep.
1/4 ounce or what was the other measurement?
3/8. I mean, you can kind of experiment, but generally those are my two go-tos. I'll always have quarters with me, and I'll always have 3/8.
Perfect. Awesome. Great tip, Brett. And do you have any certain like strategies or pieces of information? Because I know the Facebook group is a great resource as well. But when it comes to planning that fishing trip and maybe the clouds look a little gray or dark or gloomy, when is the best time to fish? I mean, obviously safety is important, but when can people get out there and expect to be safe, but also possibly get a good catch?
Yeah, so the best days are generally when most folks are not going to go, right? It's low pressure days, overcast, rainy. It also depends on the species that you're targeting. But generally for inshore fishing, those low pressure days, and there's 1,000 variables, you can get as complicated as the lunar activity and stuff like that. I personally, I don't claim to be the greatest fisherman in the world. I have great days and I have bad days like everybody else. I have more bad days than good days, it seems. But again, I like to go when it's nice out, right? Like I don't like being out there when it's rainy and nasty. So you can still have really good days on those clear bluebird skies. I would say the main things to pay attention to would be the tide, where you're at, whether it's coming in or going out. I generally I like to fish both. So the last couple hours of the incoming tide and the last couple hours of the falling tide. But you don't really have to pay too much attention to that. I mean, it certainly helps. But if you're just starting out, I would say go out when the tide's moving either way and just pay attention to your wind. Your wind is really what's going to drive kind of where you're going around here.
Absolutely, especially with all the byways that can happen, especially if you're in the no spoiler alert here, Lincoln Bay area, near the Lesnar Bridge. It can be very, very cumbersome to really look and see how that tide's going, because it can be easy place to get stuck. Not that I have ever gotten stuck out there, but I've heard people,
Lynn Haven in general, there's tons of shoals out there and it's easy to run aground for sure. And I mean, that tide too, that current rips through there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, Brett, I want to touch a little bit on your day job here, and I apologize, I'm doing this on your day off, so we'll just leave this to one question. But it's a very important question, especially when it comes to making sure we're being good stewards of our environment. And I want to know how your role at the Environmental Center has really shaped the way you employ certain strategies to sustainable fishing practices, and how you go about making sure you're not overfishing or you're being respectful for the environment. And are there any strategies or tips that you have for folks who may want to be good stewards of the waters and want to be respectful but don't really know how to go about doing that? Are there any strategies or things that they can take from you to kind of do better on that area?
Absolutely. And it's a great question. So, and I'm not trying to go on a tangent here. I can talk about this stuff all day. So just cut me off if I get too long-winded. But two great resources. One is DWR, which is the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources, their website. Okay. They have all the regulations posted on their website. You name it, you can find it there. The other is going to be VMRC, which is the Virginia Marine Resource Commission. They regulate all the saltwater. DWR regulates all the freshwater. So anything you want to know, you can find on one of those two websites. The other thing I recommend when it comes to keeping fish to eat, I do it. That's one of the things I enjoy is knowing where my food's coming from. But at the same time, I like you said, you want to remain ethical. You want to ensure that you're not keeping too many and you're not harming the population. I mean, you got to think you're not the only one out there that's keeping fish, right? So knowing the laws of how many fish, and I'm no biologist, but these regulations are there for a reason, right? And I want my kids to be able to enjoy our fisheries. I want their kids to be able to enjoy our fisheries. So it's something that I think is really important. There's an app that you can download for Android or iPhone, and it's called Fish Rules. It's a great app. It uses your GPS location to determine what state you're in. And you can literally type in the species of fish and it will tell you whether the season's open, whether the season's closed, how many you can keep, what the minimum size limits are. I mean, it tells you everything just based off of your GPS location. And I fish a lot in Carolina too, and I don't know their regs nearly as well as I know Virginia's. So when I'm there, it's a great app to just type in and go, okay, I can keep, 3 of these or whatever. And this is how long they have to be. Now, I don't tend to keep my limit every day. I keep what I can eat in a reasonable amount of time, right? So if I can keep 5 fish and I catch 5 fish, I might keep 2 or 3, right, to feed me, my wife, my kid. That's, I don't like stuff sitting in the freezer and going to waste, and then I feel like I'm doing a disservice. Not everyone's like that. That's fine. That's just a personal thing, but.
Sure. Well, Brett, I really appreciate you sharing that because there's a lot to be said about this area. And I bring up the Lincoln, Lynn Haven Bay area again, because there is a great resource if you are planning your trip to the Virginia Beach area and you're part of the Discover Virginia Beach Facebook group. You've probably already heard me say this, but we actually have a guide called the Vibe Guide, which highlights all of the best places to visit and all of the places to appreciate and tour along the way. And one of those is the Back Bay Wildlife Refuge, which is actually one of the beaches. You can't swim at it, obviously, but it is a tremendous resource to the community where they use the old, one of the examples, they use the old oyster shells. I'm pretty sure you've seen this, Brett, and they, stuff it ashore and they repopulate it, and it actually helps revitalize and keep the ecosystem sustainable. So that way, fishermen, aspiring fishermen like myself and active fishermen like Brett, can continue to appreciate and enjoy all that this wonderful area has to offer for generations to come. So if you're like, okay, well, this is nice, I might download the app, and you're looking for more ways to kind of like dig a little bit deeper, that is a great resource to check out as well. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely. With that said, we are going to go ahead and head on to the last segment of our conversation today. Brett, it's been an incredible conversation. You've dropped a lot of great tips and resources, as well as how to take care of the environment. So I kind of want to land this plane here with you and maybe talk about next question I have for you is, are there any certain safety protocols or precautions that you follow when you're fishing with, let's say, young children or maybe inexperienced fishermen, and they're maybe grown adults but act like children? Is there any precautions or regulations you say are best practices when you're out on the water?
Yeah, so just following the general state and federal laws is obviously something that's very important. The life jacket law, especially for kids. If there are children on my boat, they're 100% wearing a life jacket. And, having all the proper safety equipment on board your vessel, even things that you don't necessarily need by law, I tend to have, because you can't put a price on your life or on a loved one's life, in my opinion. So if there's something that I can get that, the old saying, you'd rather have it and not need it, I tend to have that on my boat, because like you said, this area, the currents, the wind, the water is, the water's a big beast sometimes. And I'm a good swimmer, but I don't like being in there for too long if I didn't choose to be there. So just following general safety practices and letting everyone else kind of know your safety plan, or your float plan, some people call it, knowing where everything is on the boat in case they do need to get to it. And then obviously hooks, right? When you're fishing and there's kids running around your boat, stuff gets dropped, hooks and pliers and knives and you name it. So I try to be a little OCD on my boat, which I'm a little OCD anyway, so it helps. Just keeping that stuff kind of out of reach and in a safe location.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Brett, I appreciate you sharing that. We've talked about the inspiration for your Facebook group. We've talked about safety and revitalization of the community, which all sound like sometimes very important, but somewhat homework assignments. So let's dive a little bit more into the meat of the fishing. Brett, would you mind telling us maybe a few, or you could be generic or as specific as you like, of your favorite fishing spots, and also some of your favorite fish to eat here in the Virginia Beach area?
Sure. So I'll start with saying probably one of my favorite spots is the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. That's no secret. Everyone knows. I'm not giving anyone's GPS coordinates away here. Literally anywhere along the Bay Bridge Tunnel, you can get into some really good fishing. Spadefish, cobia, big bull red drum, as they call them. Cobia. You name it. There's fish all up and down that bridge and those pilings. So that's a good spot. Another no secret is Rudy Inlet. I don't think anybody will shame me for giving that one away. That place is Yeah, that's a Walmart parking lot at that boat ramp, but it's for a reason. I mean, there are fish there, and it's a calmer, more secluded area. I joke with my buddies, and I'm like, it's basically like fishing a giant saltwater pond, you know.
Absolutely.
So those are some good spots to go if you have access. And then I will try to give you some for the land-based fishermen. I know not everyone has a kayak or a boat. You mentioned Back Bay. There's actually a boat ramp. Well, there's a couple down there on the boat ramp,
Okay.
but EWR owns a ramp, the Trojan boat ramp, and you can fish from shore there. It's fresh water, but still, I mean, if you're just looking to shore fish with your kids, that'd be a good spot.
Absolutely. What
And
about
then favorite?
sorry, I was going to say, what about the picture behind you? Is there
Yeah.
anywhere to be fish caught to be there?
Yeah, that's the Virginia Beach Pier, and then you have the Ocean View Pier too. And yeah, absolutely, they catch Spanish mackerel, and I mean, guys catch all kinds of fish from the pier. I've never been a big pier fisherman, so I don't like that. That's a different crowd, kind of. They kind of have different tactics and techniques. But going back to that bottom rig with shrimp we talked about earlier, perfect for pier fishing. I mean, anything that's out there, you'll catch on that shrimp. So yeah, for sure. The piers around here, there used to be a few more. I think there's one in Hampton too. The Buckrow Pier, I think, is still open. I'm not sure, but there are several piers around that are great to fish from.
Absolutely. And Google's a great friend there as well.
Yeah.
Just like you mentioned with the fish rolls, if you're just looking for fishing piers in the area, are there, and this is for my question as well for you, Brett, is there any particular way you like to cook your fish, or does anybody else cook in your family, or do you have a certain way you like to cook your fish?
Yeah, I go fried, man. I'm not the healthiest eater when it comes to fish. I prefer fried fish. I mean, I just love a fish fry. But lately I've been trying to get a little better about it. So I'll bake it, or I'll look up some, different catch and cook on YouTube's a great, technology's come so far. You can watch and find some very cool recipes. And I've enjoyed doing that, but it's easy to just throw some peanut oil in a fryer and drop them in there,
I was about to say, you don't really need, you can always add the Old Bay at the end, but
that's it. Yeah. You don't need to be a great cook.
No. When you work so hard, it's easy just to, throw it in the frying pan and call it a day,
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Brett, thank you so much for our conversation today. It's been a joy to speak with you and also talk about, working through our environment and also enjoying and appreciating all that the Virginia Beach area has to offer. I'm going to roll out the red carpet for you, Brett. Is there any special upcoming events or promotions? Or I see you wearing representing your Facebook group shirt. Anywhere where people can go to learn more about you and support your channel?
Sure. So you can find us just Virginia Beach Inshore Fishing on Facebook, same on Instagram. You'll see the VBIF, Virginia Beach Inshore Fishing, VBIF. You can just go there on Facebook, same on Instagram, and just follow us. It's a side thing for me. So I have some help, but not a lot. The shirts and stuff, we did a run of those. We're going to hopefully do another one soon, depending on interest and stuff like that. And we host some fishing tournaments from time to time. So we're hoping to do some more stuff like that. Maybe a beach cleanup. Those are some things that are being talked about and worked out now, but time will tell. And, but yeah, for sure, get on that Facebook page and that Instagram and just follow it. You'll learn a ton on there. There's a lot of great people on there.
Absolutely. There sure are. And if you're an aspirational fisherman like myself and you just want to go and see how beautiful the ocean is and how beautiful the fish are, there are, almost every day there's 5 or 6 fish being posted that just incredible size and up to regulation standards and whatnot. But it's really cool to see. So Brett, thank you for having such an incredible platform. With that said, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Discover Virginia Beach podcast. We'll hope to catch you all in the next episode. And until then, go out and discover Virginia Beach, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks again, Brett.
Thanks, Joseph.